Am I the asshole for calling my sister cruel for her tattoo idea? Sis is 28. I'm a 26-year-old male. My sister, N, has always had a strained relationship with our parents, especially my mom. I am clearly not privy to the reasons because things are fine with me and my parents. When N went to college, she met her creative writing professor as a freshman, and they got close immediately. They would do a lot together and worked closely on a few different writing projects. N never specifically said this, but it was obvious to anyone who saw them interact that they had a substitute mother/daughter type relationship, which hurt my mom a lot to see. I always thought she'd grow out of it or that the professor would move on, but 10 years later, they were still very close. About a month ago, the professor died unexpectedly, and it devastated N. She was really depressed over the holidays, which of course was all in front of my mom and was a difficult reminder that N loved the professor as a mother way more than she ever loved my mom as a mother. She still talks to my parents and stuff, and they don't fight or anything, but N is very distant and doesn't tell them anything about her life beyond the bare minimum. My mom tried to comfort N, but N was doing her distant thing and didn't want comfort. Something unfortunate that happened to N is that when she got the call that she died, she was brewing tea, and in the shock of the news, she spilled the boiling water on her arm, which burned her kind of badly on her wrist. I think the burn was like on the borderline of 2nd and 3rd degree and definitely still looked pretty rough during the holidays. N said it was especially hard because in addition to the physical pain, every time she looks at it, she is reminded of the moment she found out that the professor died, which I totally get. I was on FaceTime with N, and she said that she talked about it to her tattoo artist friend, who said that the burn should be able to heal well enough to get a tattoo over it, and then excitedly told me about her idea, which is a type of flower that the professor gave her as a bouquet for her undergraduate graduation. My mom was so embarrassed that day because she didn't get N flowers, but the professor did, and N was parading them around so happy, and it was a reminder of their connection. I guess N and the professor exchanged these flowers for every special occasion like birthdays, etc. So now she wants to get a decent-sized tattoo in a highly visible spot of something that will remind everyone of the professor. I told N that this seemed really cruel to my mom, who already feels cast aside and like she's in exile from N, and that's without the constant permanent reminder. N kind of scoffed and said, quote, "I can't believe you think you have the right to tell me not to do this," called me an asshole and hung up, and is still not talking to me except for a very brief text saying congratulations for a promotion I just got. My parents aren't commenting. My dad said I should have just kept quiet even though he agrees, and my mom made no comment but seemed grateful that I stood up for her. I feel like I was just being protective of my mom, but am I the asshole?
My ex cheated on me with his ex, so I made him believe that I was unalive. So 6 months ago, my ex-boyfriend left me for, let's take a guess, for his ex. Recurrent theme, everybody knows I look like I just got punched in the eye, but so he left me 6 months ago for his ex. Mind you, he was always talking badly about his ex. And one thing that I can say for a fact is if your boyfriend is talking trash about his ex-girlfriend, it means he still has feelings for her. This is something I've learned, and it is very true, because sometimes we're fooled and we think, oh, he hates his ex, he would never go back. No, if he has any feelings, because indifference is the opposite of love. Hate is not. So if he's talking about his ex filled with hate, there's something fishy. So he basically broke up with me in the worst way possible. He was always saying his ex was abusive, blah, blah, blah. One day, out of nowhere, I wake up and I'm blocked everywhere. So no explanation, no nothing. And I find out through Instagram that they're together through a fake account that I created because, like I said, he had blocked me on everything all of a sudden. This was obviously one of the hardest times in my life. I almost unalived myself because it was completely heartbreaking. I mean, there's nothing worse than someone breaking up with you this way, just out of nowhere, blocking you, and then you find out that they're with their ex that they were always claiming was abusive and whatnot. It was a very difficult and dark period of my life, as one can imagine. I was so heartbroken and I was so depressed that I think it was easier for me not to say anything. I left it alone for about 6 months. I left it alone. I didn't say anything. I was really bad. I knew he would eventually say something because it always is like this. they always do come back. So I did nothing. For 6 months, I did nothing. Absolutely nothing. And I moved on with my life as much as I could. But I knew one thing. I knew that if he ever were to come back, which I already said, I knew he would, I was going to do something. I was going to do something that would make him feel the guiltiest possible for what he had done to me. So I started thinking, what would that be? What would make someone feel the guiltiest possible for having done something like that? He does come back, I'm gonna make him regret treating me like shit, and I'm gonna tell him that I was unalived. So he finally unblocks me. After 6 months of not saying anything, of me being blocked everywhere, he finally reaches out, he unblocks me, and he sends me a text message apologizing for everything, making up this excuse. Mind you, he didn't know I knew that for these 6 months he was with his ex, because he blocked me everywhere. He made sure that, you know, we had no mutual friends, basically, because our relationship was very toxic and we were just like always with each other. The only people that we knew were like our family, and he had blocked all my family. So he basically didn't know that I had a fake Instagram, and he didn't know that I knew that he was with his ex for these 6 months. So he basically just apologized, and he pretended that the reason why he had blocked me out of nowhere was because he was dealing with his mental health. It's always the same thing. So I responded to him pretending that I was my sister from my phone. And I say, oh, my family has been trying to reach you. No one's been getting a hold of you, but your ex-girlfriend, she has passed. You can tell I had watched 13 Reasons Why, because at this point I'm pretending I'm my sister, texting him saying that the real me, even wrote him a letter, a goodbye letter to him. And he's obviously in shock. Also, like, on that note that my sister was saying that I had wrote to him, I was listing all the things that he had left, because when he blocked me, I still had a lot of his stuff. So my sister asked for his address and everything. He gave it to her. He tried calling the number because he wanted to talk to my sister, because he was in shock, obviously, and he couldn't believe it. Also, on the letter that I wrote him, I sent it with his stuff. I mailed it with his stuff, like the note, and he never said anything back. I know that the stuff that I wrote there is pretty heavy. I made sure to make it as detailed as possible to make him feel as if me saying that I had unalived myself because of him wasn't enough. I tried to list everything possible. So yeah, basically, I know some of you will say that I went too far, and I honestly do not care, because I know what I went through when all of this went down. I know what I went through when I found this out. I know how hard it was. So, I mean, honestly, as soon as he unblocked me and he texted me, I was like, this is what I've been waiting for. And revenge is always good. The best revenge comes late. Now, like I said, we had no mutual friends. The only people that we knew in common were my family. I basically have no social media presence, as you can see. And yeah, so he probably will never find out that I'm actually alive. It's not like he actually cared that I was even alive to begin with. Everything's gonna stay the same for him, but he will just forever feel guilty. And I like to live that way. I like to live knowing that he's out there feeling guilty forever, because I know he is.
She was only 12 years old when she first killed, making her, at the time, Britain's youngest convicted killer. Since then, she's been given the nickname the Devil's Daughter. 18-year-old Katie Ratcliffe had hopes and dreams of one day becoming a hairdresser. Katie was a very social girl. She was the easiest person to like. Some of her favorite things included doing her hair, her makeup, dressing up, anything to do with beauty, really. She was training to be a stylist at Bumble 2 Salon in the southeast of England. And in the summer of 1992, she was fresh out of a breakup with her first serious boyfriend, and grieving that relationship was pretty hard for Katie. Her spirits were down, morale was low. Katie was not in the mood to do anything but lay in her bed and overthink about how the relationship ended. June 6th of 1992, Katie's best friend Michelle. I have a really hard time saying my name in these cases. My name is Michelle, if you didn't know. Michelle noticed how upset Katie was, and she told her, "Come on, get up, we're going out." She wanted to help her get her mind off things, so they go out, have a good night together filled with lots of laughing, dancing, and singing that lasted up until around 4 in the morning. The place they were at, as well as the surrounding places, were closing down for the night, and Katie found herself outside, unable to find Michelle. She didn't worry about it. She figured Michelle would find her way back home, and Katie started walking towards her house. But that night, Katie would never make it home. The following morning, in a nearby town, Katie Radcliffe's body would be found lifeless on a side street. Her body was left with very little clothing on, and it was absolutely in horrible condition. It was obvious that she had been attacked terribly, and she had over 30 stab and slash wounds all over her, and by the looks of it, it was a crime of passion. Whoever did this did it with the goal of ending Katie's life, but the way that it was done, there were signs that the killer took their time, as if they wanted Katie to be in pain, but they also continued harming her body after she was already deceased. A lot of questions, zero answers as of yet. Initially, every officer's mind went to male suspect. Whoever did this was strong. They used a lot of force. The victim was a young, beautiful girl, likely the victim type that they would assume would be a male's preferred victim. And the way that she was killed, the fact that they continued to harm her body after she had already passed, that kind of behavior from what they had seen in the past was something that a male killer would be more likely to do more so than a female killer. So when investigators put together their criminal profile of who they thought their killer was and what kind of suspect they were looking for, the one thing they were sure of was that it was a man. Investigators assumed the killer was probably a man, probably in his 30s, somewhat muscular, assuming he had enough strength to commit the violent crime. They questioned witnesses, they followed the leads that they received, they searched for clues, searched for evidence, but every single time they came up empty-handed. Katie's murder would remain an unsolved case for 2 years. On the second anniversary of her death in 1994, police received a 911 call reporting an attack at a school. One of their students, named Sharon Carr, had stabbed her classmate for no apparent reason. Sharon Carr had approached her 13-year-old classmate, Anne-Marie Clifford, at school. She asked her for help for looking for something that she lost in the bathroom. Anne-Marie agreed to help her, and they both went into the bathroom together. When the two of them were alone in there, Sharon pushed Anne-Marie down to the floor, pulled out a knife, and started waving it around with a creepy smile on her face. When Anne-Marie made a move to try and run away, Sharon stabbed her in the back when a group of girls walked in and intervened the attack. Anne-Marie later said that Sharon was laughing and appeared to be happy during the attack. Who is Sharon Carr? Sharon was born in Belize. She was one of 4 children. They grew up in poverty. Her life at home was horrendous. Her father was a violent, angry man that would treat his wife and children like trash. And her mother was everything that a mother should not be. She was neglectful. She did not care one bit for any of her kids' well-being. Not to mention aggressive, but aggressive to an alarming degree. If her kids did something wrong, they would get punished by different ways to inflict physical injuries on them. Sharon's parents do get a divorce. Her mom gets a boyfriend, and they all move in with a boyfriend. Sharon gets enrolled in a new school. At first, she was described as polite and helpful by her teachers, but that did not last long. She quickly became an aggressive student and classmate. Sharon had problems relating to authority. She always wanted the attention to be on her and would misbehave to get it. She was a menace in school, very hostile, and she was a bully as well. Sharon's mom's boyfriend breaks up with her, and she goes insane. She saw red. She started throwing things at him, poured boiling water on him, and did things to physically hurt him on purpose because she did not like the fact that he was breaking up with her. And that was the kind of example that Sharon had as any sort of role model or person to look up to. I'm not saying that this is an excuse at all. But when someone is born into a violent household, when from the very first day on this earth they experience anger and aggression, and that is all they're ever surrounded with, most hours of the day, every single day while their brain is developing, obviously it's going to affect their brain in some capacity because you were shown no examples of love, no examples of what it feels like to be cared for. You have no idea what love or care even means because you've never been shown it. You've only ever been shown the complete opposite. And when you're raised like that, because you see the complete opposite, it makes you think that that is okay and that is normal. It makes sense that your perception of what is right and what is wrong is absolutely thrown off. Again, not an excuse at all. Wrong? Absolutely. Shocking? Not at all. That's a little bit about who Shannon Carr is. Now back to June 7th of 1994. Anne-Marie was transferred to the hospital where she nearly lost her life due to the stab wound puncturing her left lung. If it wasn't for the students stopping the attack, there's a good chance that she would not have made it out of that bathroom alive. Sharon had been handcuffed and taken to a psychiatric unit for evaluation. However, Shannon was not cooperating with them. She was doing everything but that. She was aggressive and violent with anyone that tried to come in contact with her. She tried tried to fight the staff. She actually tried to strangle 2 of them. When they saw that they were not going to be able to get anywhere with her, Sharon was transferred to a Young Offenders Institute instead. There she was charged for what she had done to her classmate, as well as got 2 additional charges of actual bodily harm for attempting to strangle the members of the staff. For that, she was sentenced to 2 years in a Young Offenders Institute. While she was there, Sharon Carr was talking a lot about the death of Katie Ratcliffe that happened 2 years prior. She would talk about Katie to other inmates, but also to friends and family on the phone. And the way that she would talk about it made it sound like she was almost responsible for it, or if nothing else, she played some kind of part in it. Because of that, Sharon was questioned about Katie, and she told police everything. She gave them a full confession with gruesome details. Sharon Carr ended up talking about her experience of committing murder when she was 12 years old for hours to police. When she spoke about it, she did mention details that had never been released to the public. That made authorities 100% positive that Sharon was their killer. She told them the story. She told them that she was out in that area the night of Katie's death. She was driving around with 2 older male friends. They saw Katie walking. They offered her a ride. Katie accepted. She got in the car and they drove her to a dark, secluded area. Katie was able to jump out of the car. She started trying to run away, but Sharon caught up to her. She chased after her while she was holding a 6-inch knife. Sharon attacked Katie and she started stabbing her over and over and over again, continuing to do so after Katie was already gone, using so much strength that later would make the police think that an older, strong, muscular man had to do this. Sharon turned around to go back to the car with her 2 male friends, but they were gone. They drove away and had left Sharon there, and Sharon dragged Katie's body into a hidden area, left her there, and walked the rest of the way home. Investigators did find those 2 guys because Sharon gave the names, but they said that they had alibis and the police didn't have enough solid evidence to charge them for anything, so they were just let go. Sharon's house was searched and they took her diary for further evidence. Her writings and her drawings are terrifying, so scary. In reference to Katie, Sharon wrote things like, quote, "If only I could kill you again. I promise I would make you suffer more this time." Another one, quote, "I am a killer. Killing is my business and business is good." She was 12 years old when she was writing this. She also wrote, quote, "Last night it occurred to me that killing her did me good. Now I know what I'm capable of and I will do it again." Sharon then wrote about how on the 2nd anniversary of Katie's death, she was going to go out and do the same thing to someone else. But this time she wrote that she wanted to drag it out longer because she enjoyed to see people suffer. We now know that on the 2nd anniversary is when she attacked her classmate Anne Marie. Her diary as well, in reference to herself, Sharon said that she was a twisted life destroyer. She wrote about how sometimes she would look in the mirror and see the devil, but then she would realize that it wasn't the devil, that it was just her, which is where she gets the nickname the Devil's Daughter from. When Sharon was evaluated, she was diagnosed with schizoaffective disorder. Some of the symptoms and the side effects that Sharon seemed to suffer from were hallucinations, delusions, mood disorders, depression, anxiety, and mania. Shortly before Sharon's trial began, she took back her confession. She said she actually didn't mean it. She didn't mean to say that. She was just in a bad headspace, and it actually wasn't her that killed Katie, but obviously no one believed her. On March 25th of 1997, Sharon pled not guilty by reason of insanity, but she was found guilty. She was sentenced to a minimum of 14 years in prison. The day that Sharon Carr got sentenced, she was smiling on her way out of court. To this day, Sharon remains behind bars because it is said that she is still extremely violent and a big danger to the public. Absolutely crazy. It's so scary when someone so young does something so heinous.
Imagine being 12 years old and having the same bones broken over and over and living to tell the tale. On the evening of July 29th, 1995, 12-year-old Thaddeus "Thad" Phillips and his sister was sleeping on the couch in their new home in Baraboo, Wisconsin after dinner with their family. Their parents had already gone to bed while Thad and his sister watched TV, eventually both dozing off. At one point, someone picks Thad up off the couch, but he doesn't react right away as his father would often do this, carrying him to his bed. When he wakes up, he's disoriented as he notices he was outside. He looks up to see an older teen boy who seemed friendly and like a family friend asking him for help with his car, stating that it was just up the hill. The mysterious boy introduced himself as Joe, and even though Thad was still sleepy and confused, he followed the boy half a mile up to his home. Joe stated that he would be having a party and named several names of boys that Thad was familiar with from school, stating they would be there soon. In the meantime, he asked if Thad wanted to check out his model cars upstairs. He followed, unaware of the violence that awaited him. As soon as they made it up the stairs, Joe shed his friendly teen persona, even though he was 17 years old. He quickly grabbed Phillips, throwing him on the bed, jumped on him and grabbed him by the ankle. Then, he twisted Phillips' foot around his leg until the bone above his ankle snapped and splintered. Afterwards, he sits on the bed with his hands on his head. Phillips, who was in shock, tries to make a run for it. He makes it down the stairs and to the kitchen before he's grabbed and put in a chokehold, then dragged to the living room where he's thrown on the couch. Joe then pulls his right leg up and above his head and forces it so far back that Phillips' thigh bone fractures. Afterwards, Joe again becomes a normal person and converses with Phillips, telling him all about his life and how he lives in this dirty house with his brother. Phillips asks him why he's doing this, and he states that he loves the sound and feeling of breaking bones. He then asks why he doesn't just do it to himself, to which Joe replies that he's tried but can never get the angles right. Then Phillips asks if he's done this before to others, and Joe replies yes. Phillips would later find out that he's not the first victim. In the morning, Phillips asks to call his parents. Shockingly, Joe agrees, but the phone wasn't connected. Phillips tried to plead and bargain with him to let him go, stating that he would say that he tripped and fell, but Joe replied that no one would believe it. They spent half of the day watching TV in the dirty living room until Joe takes Phillips back upstairs to his room. He puts Phillips on the bed again, this time grabbing his left ankle, and twists it until his ankle breaks, but he doesn't stop there. He continues twisting until his skin looks like a twisted rubber band and his feet are completely backwards. Phillips tried to fight back by hitting him in the head and the back, but it would just anger Joe. Joe grabs a pillow, suffocating Phillips with it while threatening him. He tells him to hold the pillow there and not fight back or scream, or else he'll break his back or neck. Phillips 100% believed him and never cried or gave way to how terrified he really was. Joe kept taking breaks, going out to his car and then coming back angry and ready to inflict more damage in frustration of his car not working. He would also pretend to play friends and nurse with Phillips, talking to him as normal and using leg braces and wraps to aid his injuries. When he put the leg braces on him, he tried to make him walk. At one point, they were standing at the foot of the stairs when Joe pushed him down. Phillips fell down the flight of stairs on his back. He's also starting to swell up from his injuries and the pain is unbearable. His right ankle is the size of a softball and his thigh was the size of a basketball. Later that night, Joe leaves the house, leaving Phillips upstairs alone. As soon as Phillips hears the car leave, he takes the chance to make a break for it. He crawls to the top of the stairs, throwing himself down head first. When he got to the bottom, he passes out for a little while. He crawls to the living room, passing out multiple times along the way from the severity of his injuries. However, Joe comes back home before Phillips can even make it to the kitchen, to the phone, and finds him. This is when things take an even darker turn. 12-year-old Thaddeus Phillips has been caught by Joe, the 17-year-old who abducted him and has been torturing him. When Joe left the house, Phillips made a break for it, but was unsuccessful. Joe comes back home before Phillips can even make it to the kitchen and finds him. This is when he drags Phillips upstairs and starts to twist his already broken and swollen ankle some more. Then, he jumps on his back and takes out all of his anger out on him. After each session, Joe would put thick layers of socks on Phillips' feet. He'd move them around so the seams were the same and lined up. Brand new white socks, and he had hundreds of them. After the socks were on, Joe would settle down. At this point, he drags Phillips downstairs and they watch a couple movies on the couch. Phillips eventually passes out and sleeps until the next morning. Sunday morning, Phillips wakes up to see his legs and he can't even recognize them anymore. They were bruised, swollen, and mangled. He was in excruciating pain. All Phillips wanted was to be with his family, as it was his brother's birthday that day as well. At this point, he's upstairs on the bedroom floor as Joe is continuously torturing him every few hours. He's running back and forth and jumping on him with his knees. He then breaks Phillips' knees. Phillips is realizing that there is zero chance that he would be able to walk out of there in any way, shape, or form. That night, Joe goes out again and shoves Phillips in his bedroom closet, locking the door. Phillips hears the car pull away and starts rummaging through the closet, finding a heavy-duty guitar. He uses it to break the closet door open and once again throws himself head-first down the stairs, passing out at the bottom. He comes to, dragging himself to the kitchen and finds the phone hanging on the wall. He jiggles the cord down and dials 911. He tells them every detail about Joe and the surroundings, to which they replied they knew exactly where he was. They stated that they've dealt with him before and that this boy has a criminal record. When the police arrived, Phillips' knee was backwards and his feet were sideways. He was immediately put on a stretcher and the next thing Phillips sees is a hospital room. The doctor stated that he would have only lived a couple more hours from internal bleeding if he wasn't able to get help. Joseph Clark was arrested later that night at a party that he attended with his girlfriend. The first words out of his mouth when he was caught were, "Oh, he's still alive?" Phillips also informed police of when Joe bragged about torturing another boy. Supposedly the cause of his death was that he had drowned in the river, but when they exhumed this boy's body and examined the bones, both his legs had been broken similar to Phillips. When they searched Clark's house, they found a notebook which listed the names of over a dozen local boys, including some Phillips knew, with plans to kidnap them and what he wanted to do to them. In October 1997, Joseph Clark was given a life sentence for murder and 100 years for the attack on Phillips. To this day, Clark maintains that he has no memory of what he did to Phillips and claims that he's innocent of all of his heinous acts. Surgeries and long-term medical care have helped Phillips walk and use his legs, though he still remains limp. He also sued Clark and won, the total payment amounting to $21 million, but never got any of that money as Clark didn't have it. A GoFundMe was set up for him in April 2023 to help Phillips. So far, it's only raised $13,000. I put the link in my bio if you'd like to donate. I'm trying to steal my boss away from his wife. This all started out as a dare at an office party 3 months ago. When I got hired, I had a really small position. Then I got promoted to being an assistant. Let me just clarify something. My boss is ugly. He is not my type. He's older. He's like not really fit. But at the office party, I found out that he's a serial cheater. He has a wife he's been married to for 30 years. And apparently he has about 3 girlfriends because he's their sugar daddy. Now clearly my coworkers are bored. These 2 girls started daring me to go out with him, or to at least start flirting with him to see where I could go, because they have a theory that he would try to be my sugar daddy. At first I was totally against this. I would never jeopardize my job. And my coworker confessed she used to be one of his sugar babies and that he started giving her $5,000 a month. Now to me that sounds pretty good. I have 2 kids and I'm a single mom, and I really wish I could just stay home with them and take care of them. $5,000 is a lot to me because I didn't grow up with much. So I did it. I started flirting with him, and about 2 weeks later he asked me out to lunch. At lunch he offered me money, but you'll never guess for what. And trust me, it gets worse. After 2 weeks of flirting with him, he fell. He invited me to lunch and started offering me money, but you'll never guess for what. He said that he wanted me to just accompany him to a couple of work events, and that he would pay me extra for that. And when I asked him how much, he said $2,000. So of course I agreed. Remember, I'm a single mom of 2, and if my boss wanted me to be his sugar baby, I was never gonna say no. After we ended up going to the 2 events, he asked me out to lunch again because he had a proposal. When we get to lunch, we sit down and he tells me that he likes me and that I'm not like any of the other girls at the office. And he asked me if I would be okay with some extra money if I just spent some time with him. And he told me that his wife is horrible, that his life sucks, and that she's the most evil woman ever. And I accepted. This man offered me $7,000 a month, and he asked me to make a wish list for me and my kids so that he could fulfill it. I couldn't believe my luck. But before I told any of my coworkers, I decided to keep it quiet. What if they tried to use it against me? I did something crazy though. I went to his house and pretended like I needed to drop something off so that I could meet his wife. I wanted to see her. After he told me that his wife was a horrible woman, I had to go to their house to find out. Now, part of me was a little bit guilty because he was giving me money in exchange for spending time with him. But if she really is that horrible, why not? When I knocked on the door, she answered and was so rude right away. She asked me who I was, and I said I was her husband's assistant. And after talking to her for 2 minutes, I realized she really is a bitch. That's when I decided that I would completely steal him away from her. I don't even like this man. I'm not even attracted to him. But if he could offer me the life that I need for me and my kids, of course I'm going to try to steal him. 3 months into our arrangement, he had never even touched me. Not until one night, he actually kissed me. Surprisingly, I was okay with it. He confessed that he's in love with me, so I told him that I was too, even though I'm not. I told him that he needed to leave his wife, and he says he will. I hired a private detective to get pictures of her cheating on him because apparently she has affairs, and then he would get a divorce. That way she gets nothing. I know that this can backfire on me, but I'm now able to put my kids in private school, and I quit my job. And the biggest thing, he even bought me a little house. Now I don't even have to pay rent. How can I get him to leave him sooner?
Am I the astronaut for telling my new wife she's not worthy of my late wife's jewelry and refusing to let her wear it? I, 45 male, lost my first wife 5 years ago, and we have a daughter together, Emily, 16 female. My late wife left behind a stunning collection of jewelry, some pieces being family heirlooms passed down through generations. Before she passed, she made it clear that these items were to be kept safe for Emily until she was old enough to appreciate and wear them. Fast forward to now, I've remarried Sarah, 39 female, who has been a good stepmother to Emily. A few weeks ago, Sarah stumbled upon the jewelry collection and fell in love with it. She asked if she could wear some of the pieces to an upcoming event, which would be the first time she's attending with me as a couple in public. I told Sarah that the jewelry wasn't meant for her, and honestly, I didn't think it was appropriate for her to wear them since they were my late wife's. I emphasized that the jewelry was meant for Emily, and I didn't feel that Sarah was worthy of wearing something so personal to my late wife. I explained that these pieces were symbols of my late wife's legacy and that it wouldn't be right for anyone else to wear them. Sarah was visibly hurt and accused me of still being hung up on my late wife, saying I should be able to move on and that this could be a way for her to bond with Emily. She feels excluded and like she'll never live up to my first wife's memory. Now Sarah has been cold and distant, and Emily is caught in the middle, saying she doesn't want anyone but her wearing her mom's jewelry. My friends are split. Some say I was right to stand my ground and that those pieces belong to Emily, while others think I was too harsh and disrespectful to Sarah. Am I the astronaut for telling my new wife she's not worthy of my late wife's jewelry and refusing to let her wear it?
Am I wrong for announcing our pregnancy at my brother's wedding after he proposed at mine? My brother said he was going to propose at my wedding. I told him no, that it was a day about myself and my wife and we did not want any distractions. My mom lost her shit. She said that he wanted family he might not see again for a while to be part of the proposal. I said that I did not give a shit, that if he did, that I would have him kicked out. And my mom said if I tried kicking him out, she would leave too. I just remember seething inside. My brother got married last weekend. Instead of a welcome to the family toast, I used the time to announce that we were expecting our first baby. My mom was upset, but my grandmother told her to sit down and shut up. We spent most of the reception talking to family we would not see again for a while about our coming baby. My mom says I was an asshole for taking attention away from my brother on his wedding day. She got really mad when I reminded her that she threatened to leave my wedding if I kicked him out after he proposed. I have the screenshot of the text messages. Someone says, OP started planning revenge when the brother tried to upstage him at his own wedding. And he says, oh, I did. Absolutely. Fun fact, my wife isn't even pregnant.